Max the Zeeber. We mentioned Max before. Well, here he is. I know he looks a little deranged, but that's Max. In our second year of ZBS, Richard decided to start an organic garden. In fact, he decided to make it big so we could sell our vegetables locally. He got all the Zeebers to help. We planted lots of different vegetables, but our biggest crop were tomatoes. We planted 500 plants. That first night, the cutworms came. Cutworms are nasty little grubs. They can mow down a garden of newly planted tomatoes overnight. They sneak up out of the ground, chew through the thin stems, and the tomato plant topples over. They're like little lumberjacks. It was timber, timber, all through that night. By morning, we'd lost about 200 tomato plants. Bobby, who built our recording studio, got the idea that maybe he could electrocute them. I'm serious. He ran wires out into the field along with some kind of voltage amplifier or whatever it was. He stuck electrodes all over, then cranked up the power. All it did was drive the earthworms to the surface. At least they weren't fried, but they did look a little dazed. They did recover and wiggled back into the ground. There were other anti-cutworm attempts, but that's not what this is about, as you can guess from the photo. After a couple of days, the tomato stems grew thicker and the cutworms quit cutting. We still had about 300 plants left, so we did grow a lot of tomatoes, lots more than we could sell. When autumn came, we were wondering what to do with all the ripe tomatoes left out in the field. Fulton had been brought up on a farm in Michigan, and he said what we used to do is have a big tomato fight. Now that was a call to arms. Half the commune stood up and headed out to the field. In a matter of minutes, the air was filled with flying tomatoes. P.J. Ort, voice of Little Frida, heard the commotion and went out to investigate. It was like something out of Duck Soup, where the Marx Brothers are pelting the villain with fruit. But when Mrs. Teasdale stands up and starts to sing, they stop, turn, and start flinging fruit at her. And that's what happened. But P.J. wasn't singing. She was innocently walking out in the field asking, "Hey, what are you guys doing?" And in the next instant, the sky above her was red with flying tomatoes. Beefsteaks. Beefsteaks are big, heavy tomatoes. You can't simply wind up and fling one. You have to lob it. You have to bomb your target. Beefsteaks are not aerodynamically designed. They sort of flip-flop through the air, taking their time to get there. And when someone sees it coming, they just step aside. If you ever get into a tomato fight and find yourself with a beefsteak in your hand, always wait until your opponent has his or her back turned. Believe me, there are few sounds more pleasing than that of a beefsteak thudding against someone's back. If you can hit your target square between the shoulder blades, it's a wonderful whomp sort of sound, followed by a little squish. The photo. Yes, that crazy fiend is Max, and to think he once worked for Bobby Kennedy in Washington, D.C. Honest. If you look closely, I think that's a piece of beefsteak shrapnel in his hand. I'm not sure who that is hiding behind Max. It may be Meatball with his hand raised in surrender. To the right, wearing white pants, well they were, is Billy, and to the far right, Bobby. And as you can see on the table are boxes filled with more tomatoes. But those were the less ripe ones we could store. It was the hundreds of tomatoes left out in the field that were really ripe and juicy, perfect for an afternoon's grand Zeeber tomato fight.